Okay, so good afternoon, Idaho test coordinators. Today is an overview of the SAT School Day Spring 2022 administration. It is not by all means the most comprehensive presentation. There will be obviously lots of information coming your way throughout the next 3 to 4 months, but this should give you a really good overview of what the timeline is, what your next steps are, and some resources and tools available to you. So our agenda for today is that we are going to do a quick overview of the school day administration, some key dates, any changes to just SAT procedure that are of note for you all. Then we're going to go through a few specific things like offsite test and request procedures, what some staff roles and responsibilities are. This might be a refresher for some of you. And then talking about College Board tools, accommodations and supports, and then preparing for the test. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll go over your next steps and then what resources, training, and support are available to you now and in the coming months. And then we'll cover any questions we have at the end. There is an appendix at the end of this presentation that will be sent out, and all of the recordings and decks will be made available on the test coordinator website at the SDE assessment page, which is at the end of this presentation as well. So what are some key dates for this SAT school day this spring? If you don't already know, the SAT primary administration will be given on Wednesday, April 13th of this spring. The makeup will be held on Tuesday, April 26th, with the accommodated test window for students requiring test accommodations. That window is April 13th through the 26th of 2022. If you have students who require one-on-one testing or any sort of extended time, you can test them anytime within that 10-day window. Here are some key dates and activities. This is not exhaustive, but these are some of the really big highlights. Right now, you should be looking at requesting your accommodations for any of your new students in SSD Online. We held a webinar in December for all of our SSD coordinators talking about this in great detail. Also, any EL supports for extended time, those all can be requested in SSD Online now. And the deadline to ensure that those accommodations have been evaluated and hopefully approved is February 22nd. Some accommodations we'll cover a little bit later on, but if you have some complicated accommodations or if they require some follow-up documentation, if that deadline ensures that you'll have plenty of time to get that squared away with our folks in time for the test admin on the 13th. I saw a real quick question from Christy, and since we're talking about it, the SSD webinar, Christy, should be on the test coordinator website. If it's not, it's going to be posted. So just if you don't know where that is, at the end of the presentation, there's a huge link that is posted that you'll be able to access that website, the coordinator planning website at the SDE. The bulk registration window opened yesterday. So this is going to be the big kind of crux of the presentation today. And then also a more specific bulk reg webinar is happening tomorrow afternoon. And that is basically submitting your rosters to our bulk registration system, which will generate your order. We're going to go into this in greater detail later in the presentation, but that window closes on January 19th. Any orders that need to be placed after that must be placed by calling customer service directly. So it behooves you to get that done between now and the 19th. And then our online test coordinator training. So the training that everybody has to do, it's the e-modules, that'll open March 2nd and run through April 7th. So those are kind of the next steps of the next kind of 2 months. Your materials will start to arrive the week of March 17th for your pre-admin materials. So your answer sheets and your coordinator manuals, things like that. And then some of your other activities are listed here. The test materials themselves will not start to arrive until March 29th at the earliest, and then April 4th through the 6th. We use your spring break dates to determine which wave of shipments you'll be in. And then obviously the admin is April 13th. And then makeup test is on the 26th. Score releases are, the exact date is still to be determined, but that'll probably be sometimes towards the end of May, beginning of June. All of these updates and all of these window or all of these deadlines, if you're not receiving the CEE newsletters that go out at the beginning of every month, that is where we give your next steps and any resources that you need, just in time information. So make sure you're receiving those. If you're not, again, at the end of this presentation, I'll show you a link of how you can update that information to make sure you get it. But if you're on this webinar, you should be receiving that newsletter. It's super helpful. Okay, so what's new for 2022? Not a ton. We figure we've had enough change in the last year or two. So we tried not to overwhelm anybody. So one great thing that's happened is the essay has been removed. This STE has dropped the essay from the requirement, so there's no essay part of the SAT. You also can do staggered start times, so you don't have to start everyone at the exact same time. You can kind of stagger them. And here's all the little requirements laid out here, and it'll also be in your coordinator manual when you get it. But just know that if you have to split up your folks a little bit more, this kind of tries to ease that scheduling burden, as we know that people probably have to spread kids out a little more this year. Here's some other just small changes. You can double time and breaks if there's local health and safety guidelines in place. And then there's a little bit of assistive technology scripting update. Those are in SSD Online, just in case if any of your students use the ATC format, just know that in SSD Online and in their SSD manual, you will see some specific scripts and instructions regarding that format. It's pretty exciting. Also updated for 2022, for some of you, this is a reminder, and this isn't really new, but for those of you who didn't know, if you are doing offsite, so if you don't have a brick and mortar school location where you can test your students and you need to do something like rent a ballroom at a hotel or something, to request that and to request that approval, we have a request form that you have to fill out. But the only thing we need this year is the number of offsites. We don't need all the information that we've collected in the past. And so we just need to know how many offsites you're setting up, so we know how many return kits and things to send you. So if you think that you need to do this and you haven't done it in the past, talk to your principal, talk to your other testing staff, but the offsite request form has to be submitted by midnight Eastern time on January 21st, so in a couple weeks. And once we receive your form, we will send you an email confirmation, and if we have any questions, we can always follow up with you. In the appendix of this slide deck, there's more information about offsite requests, but again, it's for a pretty small group of people in Idaho. Just wanted to make that awareness out there for anyone who needs it. All right, so moving into staff roles and responsibilities. So this might be a refresher for some, but it's always good to kind of reset and set the expectation as we move into testing season. So these are all the folks that support and help implement Test A. We have the test coordinator, who is obviously the key point of contact for all aspects of SAT administration. They are my liaison for anything college board specific. They are the SDE's liaison for anything that is SDE or state policy related. So it's an important job, and many of you are very good at it. I've spoken with many of you already. So the test coordinator has a team of people, or should have a team of people. The SSD coordinator, you are in charge of all things accommodations for students. You're going to work closely with the test coordinator to make sure that the students who need accommodations receive those accommodations and have the right materials come test day. The proctor, the hall monitor, and the room monitor, very specific on test day. The proctor obviously is in the testing room administering the assessment. And the hall monitors and room monitors are monitoring the hallways. They're helping the proctors where necessary. They're monitoring the bathrooms or any other common areas to make sure that procedures are being followed. Here's some reminders regarding test day staff. You must not be involved with any paid coaching or paid SAT prep courses. You cannot have taken the SAT yourself within 180 days of the administration date. And most importantly, you cannot have a child or member of your household taking the same College Board test in the same window at any test site, especially if they have any access to test booklets before test day. So, if your niece goes to the neighboring high school and they live with you, you cannot and you cannot handle any test booklets or any materials. Test day staff need to be certified employees of the LEA. So by school size, this is how it kind of looks. In a lot of cases with our small schools, we have test day staff have multiple roles. So the test coordinator might also be the SSD coordinator. They may also be the proctor. The coordinator usually will be the one administering the assessment. They might have some additional staff that serve as hall monitors, but in general, they kind of do everything. In larger schools where you have to maybe have multiple testing rooms going at once, the test coordinator will have multiple testing rooms and with multiple proctors and multiple room and hall monitors, and the test coordinator is going to float around troubleshooting, asking questions, that kind of thing. Okay. Next slide. So the test coordinator is responsible for all aspects of school day administration, including planning rooms and staff, receiving and securing all test materials, including test materials for students testing with accommodations. You are responsible for managing test site and staff and supervising all activities related to testing, including accommodative testing. The other big thing that test coordinators are in charge of is collecting, packing, and returning test materials, completing the test day forms like the incident report, and then if you need to, ordering makeup materials. And this all has to happen very quickly and at the same time. We want those test materials packed up and shipped back to us ASAP. And the window to order makeup materials is very short. And so, being ready to fill out that makeup survey when you receive it and being able to pack up and get those materials back to College Board quickly is a huge component of your responsibility. You are the main contact for us. So, and many of you already know this because you're getting our emails, you're getting our communications, and you're already interacting with either the Idaho field staff, myself, and the SDE. If anything changes at your district, you need to let us know. You need to let the SDE know. And you should identify at least one proctor to serve as the backup test coordinator. Okay, so I saw a quick question come in about the proctor has to be a certified teacher. They do not have to be a certified teacher, but they need to be an LEA employee. So it could be an aide, it could be a counselor, it could be anyone, but they do have to be an employee of the LEA. So we don't encourage, we can't allow volunteers, basically is what they're saying. So the services for students with the disabilities coordinator. So SSD coordinator, I've mentioned this prior, but the biggest thing with the SSD coordinator, they should be doing a lot of their work right now, which is submitting their requests for accommodations for the test for any of their students that have that requirement in their IEPs. So once all those are submitted and approved, then the non-standard administration report, which is called the NAR, will go live in SSD Online about 6 weeks prior to test day. And that will then tell the SSD coordinator, here's all the kids who are approved for accommodations. Here's how you should test them. Here's how they should be grouped, et cetera, et cetera. So they're really in charge of that NAR and making sure that the test coordinator knows, what they need to make sure these kids get tested appropriately. You can have more than one SSD coordinator, and we strongly recommend that you do that, but there will only be one person identified as primary who will receive communications from College Board. So the proctor is responsible for all activities that happen in the testing room. Each room requires one proctor, and then you should have a proctor that's your backup as test coordinator. So the proctor basically has two key responsibilities that go on simultaneously. They have to not only administer the test, and they have to make sure that they do that properly, but they also have to monitor the students. So you have to make sure that the kids are coming in, sitting down properly. They don't have anything they shouldn't have. Make sure the testing environment is fair and equitable. And also that you complete a seating chart. And if any irregularities happen, that you document those to the best of your ability. So Proctor has a big job, actually. The room and hall monitors, those are really key folks as well, because they can help you with testing site setup. They can help direct students to where they need to go. And it's also really important to have folks help you monitor the halls, bathrooms, just more eyes really help keep things going smoothly. So it can also help if something happens with a proctor where they need to take an unscheduled break. It should really just be something that you have to, that you should have as a backup. So for anyone, you should always have a backup for any proctor or any hall monitor. Okay, so before we move on to accessing College Board tools, I'd see a question come into the chat, and it said that you said that a proctor cannot have any family member testing. In years past, it was allowed as long as that relative was not in their testing room. Which way is it this year? Adrian, if you are on, I would like a little support on this one because I believe that's not the case, but I will back up. I'm wondering if I have to. There you are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you just repeat that then?
So the question is that a proctor, proctors, in the slide it said that a proctor can't have any family member testing anywhere.
Yes.
Yes. So, and according to the question, it says in years past it was allowed as long as that relative was not in their testing room.
So yes, right. So a proctor cannot have their relative in their testing room. If it is possible, it's better to not have that person as a proctor at all, right? So if that person could be a hall monitor instead or something, it just makes things just on your end a little bit cleaner and easier and fewer questions from it. Nobody could question it. But if you do need to use that person as a proctor, you have to make sure that they're not in the testing room where their family member is. And that person obviously cannot have access to the test prior to test day. Proctors don't typically have access to the test prior to test day, but you just need to make sure that it's clear that proctors cannot have access to the test prior to test day.
Right. So Cindy, in answer to your question, yes, but the proctor in question, like there's a lot of caveats to that. They also could not then be a backup test coordinator either, because then they could theoretically have access to the test materials. So yes, but if possible, try not to. Good question.
Yeah, and there is a question, there's also the definition of family member, right, is a child that lives with you, or a child, even if they don't live with you, but they're your child, or if you have another young person who lives with you, a niece, nephew, something like that, and they live with you, that's considered a family member. But the other thing to just be aware of is, I know we do have some schools in Idaho that are small, and if you have if you are a test coordinator and you have a child taking the test and there is no other option for a test coordinator, or there is no other option for proctor, my recommendation is just to contact the College Board customer service, and we can work with you to, document things so that everything can be on the up and up.
Cindy, I hope that answers your question. And Linda, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Adrian. Okay, so the next piece we're going to talk about is something hopefully that you all have already set up, but just in case you don't, a College Board professional account is required for all testing staff. It gives you access to the suite of tools, including SSD Online, bulk registration, test day training, K12 Reporting Portal. There are access codes that will link your professional account to each tool for your location. So for example, the bulk registration access codes are being emailed out tomorrow, and those are for this year. So if you didn't use a bulk reg code for the fall PSAT NMST, then you're likely going to need a new access code to bulk reg for this spring SAT school day. And those codes, like I said, are being emailed out again tomorrow, and you will have your updated code sent to you and your bulk registration coordinator. You need SSD Online. If you don't have access to that, there's a process involved with that. It involves faxing a form. So that is something you'd want to look into as well. And then just, test day training in the K12 Reporting Portal. So making sure you have all of these tools linked to your professional account prior to test day will make things go a lot smoother for you. SSD coordinators. So they use SSD Online. That's a College Board tool to submit requests and accommodations, and also the EL 50% support on behalf of students. We determine what to send you based on what is in SSD Online. So when you bulk register your students, if you have Johnny Smith and he needs a large print test booklet, when you bulk register Johnny Smith, we will cross-reference that with what is in SSD Online. We'll see that Johnny Smith has an approved accommodation for a large print test booklet, and we will send that to you automatically. That's why it's really important to get all these things done before the deadlines. It's less work for you in the long run. Like we said earlier, you can have multiple SSD coordinators, but only one should be listed as primary. And if you need to update your SSD coordinator, I'm going to talk a lot about that at the end, about how to check what you have currently listed and then how to make changes. And again, if you need a form or if you need a new SSD coordinator to access that system, the form is found at that link that's there on the screen, and then you'll be given an access code once the form has been sent in. And once you're in, you are in forever until somebody says otherwise. There was a All About Accommodations webinar held in early December. The recording and the deck can be accessed at the following link. It's the SCE Coordinator website. I think it's on there. I think the State Department uploaded the recording link and the deck. They are supposed to. Their webmaster was a little behind. So if it's not there today, keep checking. It should be there by the end of this week. So bulk registration, this is our big one coming up here. So in the next couple weeks, everybody who is going to be testing should either coordinate with their district test coordinator or with themselves to log into the College Board bulk registration tool and upload the students and register them to test. College Board uses that file to ship you your materials for test day automatically. And they always ship a small overage. It's about 10% in case you have a kid transfer in. So typically we try to ship you enough materials to accommodate for any last minute students who might change or anything like that. So the bulk registration piece is really important, and you'll want to make sure that you take some time putting that together. And that's why we're doing that webinar tomorrow as well. For anybody new to the process, we will be helping you do, we'll be walking you through the bulk registration process. So, all right, the bulk registration procedures are as follows. The district test coordinator or the SAT test coordinator will complete bulk registration for each district or school. By this Friday, you will have received your access code. If you need it for this year. If you've already bulk regged for fall, you can use that same code. It'll log you right back in. And that's really all I have to say on that slide. So the bulk registration webinar tomorrow is January 6th. You can register for that if you are new to this process and want to be walked through it. We also have an e-module that you can access within the tool at bulkreg.collegeboard.org. The biggest thing with bulk reg, folks, is do not use Clever to bulk register. We do have an integration with Clever, but it doesn't work for school day. So do not use it. It will cause nothing but problems. We do have a template. You don't even have to log into the bulk reg tool all the way to get the template. You just download the template and put your student data in there. And then obviously, if you are in a district where you guys have more than one high school, the district can actually bulk reg for you, or someone at the district can bulk reg for everybody. which is a lot easier sometimes than each school doing it one by one. And if you need any help, you can always email the inbox below. The K12 Reporting Portal, that'll be something you'll be accessing towards, after the testing is completed, and you'll be looking for scores. This one is where all of your student results are. You can monitor registrations for other SAT or other College Board assessments, including national administrations for any of your students. If you have voucher codes, you'll be accessing them there as well. A lot of the folks who aren't going to be administering school day at their actual school, that's where they would access their voucher codes. If you don't have access to the K12 reporting portal, you want to talk to your principal or someone else in your building to get access to that. So K12 reporting portal is monitored through the Access Manager tool, which is another College Board tool. And so we don't just open up access to student data, obviously, for everyone. So make sure that you have the right access when you log in. And in May, or even earlier in May, we will be providing webinars and things, more training support to help with the interpretation side and the reporting out of that portal. So stay tuned for more on that. Do not, one of the big other things, so don't use Clever, and also don't use the test order system. So in the fall for PSAT NMST, you go into the test order system and you order your tests. You don't have to do that here. Not for spring. In spring, we use your bulk registration and we create your order for you. So the biggest thing is do not log into TOS and order your tests. The only thing that, like I said, that's used for is for the PSAT NMST. So do not use TOS for SAT. Okay. Accommodations and supports. So like I said before, the deadline for accommodation requests and EL extended time is February 22nd. Some accommodation requests can take up to 7 weeks to approve, so please submit them early. ELs, if your student, eligible EL students can receive 50% extended time for college scholarship reportable scores, but they have to be requested in advance through SSD Online. You do have to request them every year. So if they had it last year, you would need to submit it again for this year. Accommodations, once requested and approved, hold in the system for the rest of the student's career, unless something changes. So accommodations only once, EL supports every year. Other EL supports available without advanced request. So you can just give these without any sort of request or approval, are word-to-word glossaries and translated test directions, which will all be downloaded from the SDE and College Board website closer to test day. So when it comes to those EL 50% extended time, you will request them, like I said, through SSD Online. The biggest thing to remember about this is that students must sit for the entire time, even if they're done, even if they're the only one testing. They can't self-pace, they can't move ahead on their own. They have to sit for the entire time that they're approved for. So it's something to consider when you're thinking about what students might need that accommodation or support. Okay, preparing for the test. So College Board has assigned a 6-digit code. It's the AI code that represents your school. It is really important that you use that code and you bubble it in correctly on your answer sheets and with anything. That is like your home address. Like we use that code for everything. The AI codes are required to pre-ID students, apply for accommodations, receive materials, etc. So you should have received a confirmation email from College Board in the last couple of weeks, confirming all the information such as your AI code, your address, etc. So make sure that you have followed up with anything with that email, any of the action items in that email. If you participated in the PSAT, NMST in the fall, or SAT School Day last spring, your AI code remains the same. You do not use test center numbers. So if you're also registered as a test center, you don't use that number for this first school day at all. So we advise that you conduct a pre-administration session prior to test day. And this allows the student to complete all the answer sheet information. Once you receive that shipment that has the answer sheets and the labels and things, you want to spend some time having the kids fill all that stuff, put their label on, bubble in any kid who doesn't have a label, make sure they can bubble all their stuff in. Basically, I think of it like when you go to paint your kitchen or something. This is all the prep work. You're going to tape, you're going to sand, you're going to wipe down, because that way test day, all you have to do is give the test, and you're not going to spend 30 to 45 minutes getting kids ready to test. If you need more information about that, there was a link on the screen. And then so your next, let me go back just one second about this. If you need more information about pre-AD sessions, there is a link here to the College Board website that talks generally about what you can do there. And then also just make sure you collect all of those answer sheets at the end of the pre-admin session and keep them in a safe place. You don't want to let the kids keep them for obvious reasons. Having been a teacher myself, that would be a horrible idea. But that way, at least you know that they're ready to go, and everyone has an answer sheet that is labeled or bubbled and ready to rock and roll on test day. Okay. So what are your next steps as test coordinator? So your next step is to bulk register. So either you're going to do that, your bulk registration coordinator is going to do that, or your district bulk registration coordinator is going to do that. One way or the other, the next 2 weeks is making sure that you're bulk registered, making sure that your SSD coordinators have put in the accommodations and EL supports they need. And if you're a virtual school and you're offsite testing, that you put that offsite request in. Then also at the same time, if you are a virtual school or you're not testing kids on site and they need to take SAT at a weekend test center in March or May, make sure they get registered for that. And then also double check, make sure that the monthly newsletters and other communications are being received by the right people at your school. We try to process those changes as quick as we receive them. And to that end, I have some resources here for you. So the SSD Coordinator Planning webpage that the State Department maintains specifically for SAT School Day is here. This is where the state puts all of the communications, all the newsletters, all the policies, the webinars, etc., is all here. You should bookmark this, put it on your home screen. It is your one-stop shop. I also put a link to the bulk registration tool and also some practice resources as well. For those who don't know, we offer SAT practice through Khan Academy, and those can be accessed right through our website. And then also there's a link to the K12 Reporting Portal as well. So who do I call? This is the big thing. I have a question or I need help with something. So we have a lot of support for you. So at the top left of the screen, you're going to see your main points of contact. So you have Ms. Ayaka Nakui at the Idaho State Department of Education. She is your key point of contact for all things College Board. I work very closely with her. Her email is there. If you need to reach me or any member of the field team, you can email idahosdsupport@collegeboard.org. You also have access to one of my colleagues who is a wonderful gentleman with lots of years of experience with College Board named Stephen McHugh. And he's available to actually train your staff on all things of, data and reporting. If you need like professional development around what to do with the data and the scores, he's your guy. You can reach out to him and he can guide you through kind of how to work with this information. Another thing that's really cool that Ayaka and us here at College Board maintain is the peer contact directory. So, there's 43 of you on this webinar right now. There were 75 registered. there's a lot of a wealth of information sitting out there in our schools or behind our computers, wherever you have to be. And every school is different on how they do this best. So, work with each other. So, to that end, we created the peer contact directory. You may not be comfortable reaching out to College Board to ask what you might think is not an important question, but you would be totally comfortable reaching out to the test coordinator at your neighboring district. But you can't remember the guy's name because you just met him at a conference 2 years ago and it escapes you. We put everybody's information in this Google Doc or this web page, and it is updated monthly based on what you have provided us through the intake survey and other updates. It's in the spirit of collaboration. If you need to change your school information, so you look at that peer contact directory, you're like, that's not my SSD coordinator. She retired 2 years ago. You can submit that change to update your coordinator. So we have a link. It's in the newsletter too. So if you can get in the newsletter, it's also in any email you send to the inbox. It's in the signature coming back to you. We process those changes daily. It takes a while to trickle through all our systems, but any of those updates that you have, you can send here and we will get those processed for you. And then we also share that back to the State Department so that they can update the peer contact directory in their own records. Okay, that was a lot. So bottom line with this screen, make sure you're getting the newsletters, make sure your contact information is correct. And if you have any other questions, those 3 emails on the screen are the ones you need. If you need support, like technical support, or, I don't know where my materials are, you can always call. We have a dedicated Idaho number. It's there on the screen. We also have a dedicated voicemail box if it's after hours. We also have a dedicated email inbox. If it's accommodations, SSD, EL support, anything having to do with that, we do have a dedicated team that handles those requests and those issues, and their number and email is on the screen as well. IACA also maintains a support directory at the SDE website, and I put a link in the deck here right to that directory that has all this information in it. Okay, lots of information today. I see 2 questions, so I'm going to address those. If you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll get those answered hopefully as much as I can before we wrap today. So Debbie, is there a way to send less excess? I end up throwing boxes of excess away. I know. I knew this was going to come up today. So here's the deal. So no. Here's how the ordering works. Like I said in the earlier slide, we would rather send more than you get to test day and not have enough, especially with shipping. You all know how challenging shipping can be in our current climate. We would much rather send extra and just have to suffer through the loss and the waste than you not have enough. So we will send a 10% overage with every order. We just will. So when you do bulk register, keep that in mind, that everyone you order will receive a test booklet and answer sheet and all the information and other materials that go with it. But we are constantly trying to review those processes to try to make it less wasteful. We haven't found it yet. So, but thank you, Debbie. Kelly, is it possible that a parent can request accommodations directly with College Board without going through the school counselor? It is, but it's not recommended. And Adrian, you may have to help me out with this, but
I was going to say, I'm ready to jump in if you need me here. So.
Yeah, I know that it is, but we don't really recommend it. Maybe you can share why.
Yeah. So the process so as Jen said, yes, parents can request the accommodations on behalf of their student rather than go through the school counselor if they choose to do so. The problem with that is that the process for families to request the accommodations is an entirely paper-based process, right? So families can't have access to SSD Online. Only school counselors, SSD coordinators can have access to SSD Online. So the first thing is the process is paper-based. and it also takes longer. Part of the thing that happens when a school counselor or an SSD coordinator submits the request to us, it provides us with essentially the knowledge that the school knows that there is a plan in place. The school is kind of confirming that for us. So that's why the majority of our SSD requests that come through SSD coordinators are approved relatively quickly without documentation requests, because we are relying on the school to confirm that there is a plan in place, right? So for a parent or a family member to apply for accommodations for a student, we do need kind of all of the documentation that's required, because we don't have that kind of third party person providing that that support to us, or that confirmation to us. So it's a process that includes more paperwork. It is literally a paper process that includes more paperwork, and it generally takes significantly longer than if an SSD coordinator requests it on behalf of a parent or on behalf of a student. Now, if you do have parents that do want to do the request themselves, if they go to the SSD website, so accommodations.collegeboard.org, there is a tab on there that says for parents and students. And if you click on there, there's more information about how to do it.
Thank you. All right, Kelly. So hopefully that answers your question. So, okay. All right. So there are no more questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And as soon as I can get this little thing to pop down, there we go. And I'm going to thank you all for your time today. And if you